Okay, the Covanta UCUA deal did go through. Uh, Freeholder Sullivan congratulated himself on it, and everybody in the room, and it was approved. This is what he said. Nobody questioned. This is what he said.
And second, I am happy to report from the Union County Utilities Authority that the Covanta restructuring transaction has been completed. A transaction, obviously extremely complex and difficult transaction. There were two bond sales that occurred. One was last Tuesday and one was today. Both of them extremely well received by the financial community at interest rates that were very attractive to those investors. So what that means, and both of those transactions had to be approved by the authority itself, and that was done last week as well as this week. What that means is that the final closing and the documents and the transfer of funds will occur over the next 2 weeks. So we expect, the authority expects to have those funds in its possession on December 15th. And immediately after that, we will begin issuing those checks to the various municipalities throughout the county, as well as the county itself, certainly as quickly as possible on the 16th. I want to congratulate all the members of the Covanta project team that did an enormous amount of work in structuring this agreement, as well as Covanta itself. They're excellent partners in this deal. I'm sure the board doesn't remember, but this board first appropriated monies to begin inquiries into the whole restructuring deal in July of 2009. So this has been a 2.5-year process in order to come up with this agreement with Covanta. And as we said, what this deal is doing is rebating money to the beginning of 2011 for our contract towns and lowering those rates by approximately $12 a ton. I think it's an extraordinary achievement. We also get to share in electric revenues as the contract proceeds. So again, it was a good deal for the county, it was a good deal for Covanta, who is, as I said, an excellent partner. And certainly my congratulations to the board, because we've been this has been a very difficult deal, as I said. But I'm happy to say that there'll be money going back to the communities as well as the county, which ain't a bad thing. So congratulations to everyone, especially those folks over at UCUA, and as well as this board, who had the foresight to put the money up to create this deal way back in 2009. End of my comments, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Rapolsky.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Freeholder Sullivan, another effort in making the county less costly.
Thank you.
I knew that already, because the same day I got a letter from Wolfgang Scatcho, the Assistant Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection. And I'll link to this letter. I'll upload this letter so you can see it for yourself. He mentioned that the contract between UCUA and Covanta was approved on October 13, 2011, and then he went into all this good stuff, saying a new fund to provide $125,000 a year for waste flow, $150,000 to Rahway, $30,000 per year in metals recoveries fees, and then UCUA has to get 100,000 tons, and they're going to keep the profit if they get more tons. He left out Dakota's getting $600,000, which kind of offset a lot of this. Great, they get $30,000 per year in metals recoveries fees. Dakota's makes that in a couple of weeks, or probably less. So I got this form letter. If I have any questions, I can go to them, where they didn't address anything specifically. I mean, the thing I wanted to be addressed would be the fraud. This was sold saying this would make money, $276 million at first, then $75 million, and they completely ignored the new debt, $24 million new debt. All this stuff that actually, over the long run, would cost taxpayers a lot more. You can't just create money. I mean, the extra, the fees to the CODIS, the extra time, the fact that by as it stands now in 2023, Union County would get all the revenues from this. That was ignored completely. So this is a money loser. I'd say $50–60 million a money loser for the taxpayers, and big money for Covanta. And if you look at the contracts, you know, it's not going to be as much money as the towns think they're getting. Because Kenilworth, for example, they signed a contract. They're going to get the waste is going to cost $12 more, but they got to get a minimum in there. And if they enforce that minimum, the $12 pretty much goes away. It depends how much waste they actually bring. They've been bringing 2,600, and their minimum is 3,000. So you can work out the math. I mean, they might be paying $12 for 3,000 tons of waste. They only brought 2,600. There goes it evaporates. They might get a tiny check back. Now that this hadn't been enforced, but that's just beyond the scope. There's so many issues, and that's just two of them I brought here. None of them addressed in this letter, where the guy just said, "Hey, you're going to get $30,000 per year in metals recoveries fees."
Yeah.
You know, whatever that would mean. So it's the kind of thing where I see the DEP falling down. They really didn't understand me. They didn't understand Union County taxpayers. They didn't understand debt and the additional debt this spring. They didn't understand the CODIS, making what will probably be $1 million off this thing.
I've never heard a good thing about the DEP. The state DEP.
Let me
They
talk.
always seem to be dropping the ball on stuff.
You want to talk?
I'm done.
I just want to follow up John's comments on the UCUA Covanta deal, and that's the incinerator in Rawley, just in case nobody knows about that. But I also got an email. You got a letter from the DEP. I got an email from the DCA saying, thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Patterson. This is a great deal for the residents of the county. It was kind of along the same lines. And it was very dismissive because I had written letters and I sent it down there. I don't even think they read this stuff, but because it was too complex. I think the Trenton Pete range down there, just rubber stamp things for all you know. And then that has to do with politics, I'm sure. But my comment all along and all my letters, and I even probably mentioned this once before, but in the refinancing of the 3 bonds, and this is what, and Freeholder Sullivan, two bonds, I'm sorry, refinancing the 2 bonds. Freeholder Sullivan said, it was great, we refinanced the bonds, it went through, yesterday was the last sale. He didn't mention numbers, but he says, it was great in percentage rates that the bonds came. But in the refinance of the bonds, there was going to be a $9 million savings from the refi. In other words, whatever they were paying now after the refinance would have been $9 million less. So that $9 million, I kept saying, where is that going? The CODIS, in many, many meetings over many, many months, kept saying, oh, the county's going to save $4 million. The county's saving $4 million. This is how it's broken down. He kept saying $4 million. I said, well, where's the other $5 million? It's $9 million. It's not $4 million. And they were kind of going poo-poo, you don't know what you're talking about. But after a while, all of a sudden, I think they finally decided to look at the numbers that I kept sending to them. And all of a sudden, before you know it, wasn't $4 million. It was $5.5 million. There was another $5.5 million. And so I pressed, what's that $1.5 million? Suddenly it was a different, it just came out of nowhere. They just pulled it out of nowhere. Then all of a sudden they came out, there's another $2 million that actually is going to Covanta. And that was on top of me saying, well, Covanta sounds like it's in financial problems. And they said, oh no, Covanta is very sound. It's a very sound company. And suddenly Covanta's getting another $2 million as that savings, being kicked back. That didn't make any sense. It sounds like they're financially hurting. So basically they're all lies. It's a house of cards. They suckered a lot of towns to sign on to the contract because they needed it to go forward with the bond sales. If anything, I guess I failed. Maybe John Berry failed in the letters that we wrote to the towns, to the DEP, to the DCA. It was sad. Maybe it was just too complex over their heads, but I mean, John and I both knew exactly what the problem was, and he stated it, and I stated it. There's millions of dollars disappearing. The county's going to get $2 million gratis out of the deal as the VIG, probably every year, maybe even more. They don't even dispose of the garbage at the UCUA. So just something is sour. I mean, the towns do get a carrot, but millions of dollars is unaccountable, made up numbers, and this is what we're facing. And we could only hope Trenton would actually catch on to it, read the letters, and actually ask questions. Obviously, they didn't, especially with the letter that they sent John saying, "Oh, it's a great deal, $35,000." Meanwhile, millions disappear.
Well, we
Makes no
answer
sense.
the letters. I mean, the answer, I put up those specific things. What about the bond? What about Gable Associates not
And they
did
didn't.
a phony study? And no, these 4 things that had nothing to do and didn't ask about. It's a common practice. I mean, I kind of read these books about how to lie and cheat and how it's done. And this is what you do.
You too can be a freeholder.
Yeah. So you just divert the attention saying all these things, whether they're right or wrong. Just bring it, and you get a page, and when you get down to the full page, then you send it out. But you ignore exactly what I've said. But I feel good. I mean, I put it out there.
I gave it my
understand
shot. My
it.
conscience is clear.
Yeah.
You guys worked really hard on that. You really did. Taxpayers owe you a debt of gratitude for all the work you put into that.
Okay.